Lesson 1. The deadly nada. Fast, dangerous. Once he sees you, not so much.
Yes! Stormfly! Guess what? I made one. And you can too.
How to make your dragon? Take 1.
Aren't you a cute little... Ah!
How to make your dragon? Take 2.
Never mind. Let's just start the video. And once again, we're going to start with the armature. So I've got my aluminum foil and my wire once again, and also my lightweight Super Sculpey. Bam! We've done the basic part to start with. Now we're just going to want to stick some legs into him. So just cut off a piece of your wire, stick a pinhole through, and feed the legs in. Feel around until you're happy with the shape, and then curl your little feet at the end. This is to stop the wire from poking through the clay. Now just grab your thinner wire and do your little rapidoos. Once you're happy with that, we're going to start doing the wings. So pop another hole through the foil armature. Once again, feed your wire through, rapadoo. Starting to look pretty good now. So in comes the Super Sculpey, the ultra light. This is a great filler for filling in the wire, the lumps, the details, so it's nice and light and it doesn't waste all your primo clay. Alright, when you're happy with the basic armature and the shape, pop it in the oven for 130 degrees Celsius or 275 Fahrenheit, and I just stuck it in there for about 30 minutes. Okay, next we're going to start doing the horns and claws. I'm pre-baking these ahead of time so that we can just stab them into the clay later without worrying about them losing their shape. Go through and etch in some details for the bone, and you'll want to grab a pen pastel. I just use a light brown here just to shade it in, and then for the claws on the feet I've got a black. Alright, pop them in the oven. They won't take very long. 10-15 is good enough. And we're going to get back onto the body. So, because we've baked this already, we need to stick the clay on. I use my Bacon Bond as a glue. Now this is a pre-mixed clay I've made earlier. It's just got a little bit of granite clay, translucent, and a tiny bit of yellow. And start applying it to your armature. Use your tools to help get into those hard to reach areas. We're just going to add some little indentations for where we want to insert the claws later. There they are, all baked, ready to go. So we're just going to grab the foot claws out and push them in. Now I'm just coming in with my trusty dental pick and just shaping around each of the claws. Voila! Looking nice and toey. Back onto this dental bit, and we're going to use it to put in some wrinkles and details around the legs. Did you guys know that I started a Patreon? And if you're interested, there are details in the description below. Okay, now we're going to want to grab our customized texture tool for doing the scales and just run it across the body. I use a couple of different sizes here. We're starting with the big one. Now you're going to want to make sure that when you do this, you press nice and firmly, because I'm going to be coming in later and painting these scales individually. Alright, here I thought I could try and get away with just using the pastel to colour the scales, but I wasn't happy with that at all, so I decided to just make the whole thing purple. Which in hindsight, it probably would have been wiser to use a purple clay. But I thought I'd take a chance. You live, you learn. Now that it's all purple, we're just going to go do the little black dew claws. These ones I didn't bother baking because there wasn't going to be any weight or anything applied to them. Okay, now that we can touch the body because we baked it, I'm coming in and doing the tail. Now Stormfly's tail is blue and yellow. I also added a bit of texture for detail, so I'm going to dust them up with my pan pastels. Okay, the tail does have spikes all down the back, so we're going to roll out some of them. Just use a lightly yellow translucent clay for those. Grab your bacon bond and just start to position them all down the tail. And then I come in again with my pan pastels and I colour them to match what we did underneath. And once again, I'm going to add a little bit of texture to each of those. Okay, now we're going to move on to the head. So Stormfly has quite a large head, so I'm using a little bit of aluminum foil to fill out the center of the skull. For the bottom jaw, you're going to want to make sort of like just a big round flat area with chubby cheeks. The top area, you're going to want to make a pointed beak, sort of like a bird, because if you ask me, Stormfly is not a dragon, he is a parrot. Okay, I've got these pre-made eyes here that I've purchased off Etsy. They seem to be perfect for Stormfly. Position them on the top of the skull and then come in and add in some eyelids. You're also going to want to add in a couple of areas of clay for where you can push in those little head thorns that we made earlier. And once you're happy with the basic shape of the head, I just cut out a bit at the bottom and attached it to the rest of the body before I start sculpting any more details on. Once again, we're going to use our texture tool to get that scaly appearance across the top of the face, and the smaller tool here to do underneath the eyelids and around the cheeks and so forth. Okay, looking pretty good. I add a little bit of bacon bond into this hole. The rest I just dip into the bacon bond and then just firmly press them into the head. Do that chin. Just got a light beige coloured pen pastel here that I used to colour, and we're going to do a little bit of the inside of the lips before we put the teeth in, just a light pink. Stormfly also has a little bit of red tinge around the eyes and nose, so when those details are done, come in with your purple and fill in the rest. Back into the oven once again. For the next part, I'm going to do the horn on her head. I just used the same clay that I used for the horns on the back of the head, and with a light brush of the brown. Next I'll be making the teeth. I just use circle cutters so that I can always get the teeth the same size every time. And just a little light dusting of a mustard coloured pan pastel, just because nobody's teeth are going to be that clean. Now we're coming back in with the tummy coloured clay to finish off the tummy. And I decide that before I start the wings, I might start filling in some of the scales. Five years later, I've painted half of them. And now that I'm happy with what I've accomplished, I've decided to start the wings. Just make sure you blend nicely in and around the shoulder areas. Stormfly also has a little hook on her wing edge, so we're going to want to put a little nub in there for that. And I'm just tracing out the wing pattern by using a thin sheet of polymer clay that I put in my pasta machine at setting 2. And I'll silicone tip tool is perfect here for blending in the edges. When you've got the wings all shaped and you're happy with them, we're going to come in with the pan pastels once again and do a base coating of colour. You don't have to worry about being too perfect at this stage because we will be coming in again later and painting some more blue dots all over the place. This is the last time we're going to be baking her, and then we're going to be painting. Okay, so she's got some little details under her wings, which I'm just filling in here with some blue paint. And of course the top of her wings, which I think are the most prettiest dragon wings I've ever seen. Also the most painful ones I've ever painted. And I'm just going over the tail as well. I use the blue paint for the blue, but I tend to find that my yellow paints aren't very opaque, so I've gone with a Posca pen. I'm also using the pen to do the little edging details on the blue dots. I think if you painted this, you'd probably go insane, but the pen definitely made it a lot easier. Just make sure that when you use Posca pens on sculptures that you seal it afterwards with a varnish. In this case, I just use a matte varnish. Alright, now it's time to finish off the rest of the scales on the legs. See what I mean about making sure that when you stamped it with your texture tool, to be really firm so that you could get that detail. And another 5 years later, she's finally finished. Anyway, I'd like to give a big shout out to my patrons who are amazing and support me through all my crazy concepts. And if you found Stormfly a little bit too hot to handle, which is totally understandable, if you click here, you can watch a video on how to make the Night Fury toothless. But until next time, I'll see you later.